next Joint Standardization Board, and our final one for the day, which is ARSAG, Aerial Refueling Systems Advisory Group. Very robust JSB, similar to the FESWIG, multi-service, multinational, broad NATO membership, broad industry participation. The chair of that rotates between NAVAIR and the U.S. Air Force. Can you imagine Boeing and Airbus working on the same panel together to advance aerial refueling? Well, that's happening in ARSAG. So our speaker here, and finally, I'm going to do this quickly, is Farhad Choudhury. He is the current chair or deputy chair. He's every 2 years he's one or the other, it seems. He is currently the program manager and IPT lead for Navy's aerial refueling program. He leads a team of engineers, scientists, and logisticians spread throughout CONUS at various NAVAIR sites. He's our last speaker. We have 20 minutes left, so if we don't get to Q&A today, we will definitely do it tomorrow. But Farhad, please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm sorry I'm not up on video. Things went well during rehearsal, but things happened, and I believe it's on my side, on the Navy side, with certain firewalls and whatnot they pushed. Anyway, as Lloyd mentioned, Farhad Choudhury with the U.S. Navy NAVAIR Systems Command. I've been with aerial refueling for many years, and wonderful. It's an honor to be part of this group, part of JSB, and working with critical thinkers and subject matter experts from all over the world, basically NATO, as Lloyd mentioned, Air Force, Navy, Army, Boeing's, Lockheed's, and Airbus. So we all work together. So obviously this is success with standards is our theme of this panel. So it is absolutely critical that we standardize the procedures for aerial refueling. And I'll start off with a couple of really short stories. Driving on a highway, if you can imagine a tractor trailer pulling up at 60, 70 miles per hour next to you, it's a very uneasy feeling. Happens to me all the time, and any of you, it's certainly an uneasy feeling. We want to get ahead of it, behind it, away from it. So you can imagine a couple of airplanes coming close together. Anytime they come close together, it's not a easy thing, certainly. It takes absolute amount of talent and flying skills to do that. Anytime you put two planes together or more. So the story is back in December 2018, we had a KC-130, Marine Corps KC-130 flying off the coast of Japan over the Pacific Ocean. And F-18 aircraft, a couple of F-18s pull up, and whatever procedures, whatever happened, whether it's pilot error or nighttime, bad weather, you can imagine, throw in all the ingredients there. But anyway, two planes collided, lost lives. Out of 7, 5 in the 130, KC-130, 2 of the F-18, there was only one survivor, and those of the planes went down in the Pacific Ocean. So that's why it's important for standardization is we need to do it right. We do it every day. We do it hundreds of times a week, thousands of times during the year. Most recently, 29th of September, just a couple of weeks ago, in the West Coast. Again, Marine Corps KC-130, F-35 this time, U.S. Marine Corps F-35 aircraft. And this was in the middle of the day, 4 p.m. Western time, Pacific time. No weather-related issues. Two planes collided. The F-35 went down in flames. Pilot ejected safely. KC-130 made an emergency landing at a very small airport. And whether that plane's going to fly again or not, it's TBD. Safety center folks are all out there looking at the KC-130 and looking at the structure and whatnot, and of course the causes of the incident. So anytime there's two planes together, coming close together, we standardize closure rate, we standardize rendezvous, we standardize breakaway, emergency procedures, things like that. So that's the beginning of my of my brief is that how critical it is, because if you do it wrong, if you don't standardize, you can have crashes, you can lose lives. That's bottom line up front. So slide 2, if somebody can turn the slide for me, it should be a picture that says U.S. Air Force boom receptacle refueling. True, Lloyd?
Sorry, I was on mute. Say again, Farhad?
Yes, that's correct. You're on
Okay.
the refueling slide.
Yeah, you got it.
Right. Thank you. Was that David or TJ?
That was David. This is Lloyd. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. So this picture basically showing a perfect daytime scenario, and I put this up there because to show folks there's a couple of types of refueling. One is called the boom, which is the tanker airplane on the left on the top is the tanker, and there's a receptacle on the receiver aircraft, and the boom, there's a boom operator. The receiver, the plane at the bottom, will pull up next to the tanker, and then the boom operator in the bigger airplane, the tanker airplane, will actually fly the boom and connect to the receptacle. And when the connection is made, obviously this is daytime, you can see the ship down on the bottom there, top left side of the slide, you can see the little ship there. So again, the flying skills come in not only during the day, but bad weather, bad visibility, all that. It's you know, refueling doesn't stop. It has to happen, certainly during operations that are going on all over the world. So slide number 3, if you can turn to that, please. This shows what we called in the Navy called the Probe-Drogue refueling. So the airplane, if you're looking at the slides, the airplane on the right is a tanker airplane, even though they're both F-18s. So the tanker airplane on the right-hand side has got the hose and the drogue system out, and the plane on the left-hand side is a receiver airplane. So the receiver has a probe that he's trying to connect, he or she's trying to connect to the drogue basket. And it's really, again, this basket is waving all over the place, from bow waves and, again, weather and all that at 200-300 miles per hour. So that the receiver airplane has to connect in order to get gas. So slide number 4, please. This slide is showing our latest and greatest next generation Air Force tanker, which is the KC-46 airplane in this case, refueling a U.S. Navy F-18 receiver using the hose drogue system or the probe drogue system. This KC-46 has both capabilities, boom receptacle as well as the hose drogue. So it can refuel Navy Marine Corps as well as NATO receivers that use the or utilizes the hose drogue system. So slide number 5, please. ARSAG JSB, Aerial Refueling Systems Advisory Group. I'm trying to keep up with the time, trying to go down a little, a little quickly, so we have a few minutes left, hopefully, with some questions. ARSAG was founded in 1978, and it was chartered in 2006 as a JSB, and then renewed again as a JSB in 2018. And we have NATO nations. There's 20-plus nations, government, military, that are involved in this. And our JSB meets twice a year for just JSB meetings, and then we have one symposium, annual symposium meeting or a conference, if you will, where we actually, during the JSB meetings, we roll up our sleeves, work on documents, whether it's mil specs, guidance documents, things like that. There's also members of NATO Air-to-Air Refueling Group that participate, and when they see documents that are being produced at JSB, they obviously get involved in turning that document into a STANAG or an SRD or a STANREC. Slide number 6, please. Just a letter, original letter from 2006, creating the JSB, the Aerial Refueling JSB. And I'm going to ask for slide number 7, please. So what does a JSB provide? And as my previous speakers alluded to numerous times, we bring together all the stakeholders, we bring together industry, and get together, provide DoD-wide NATO standardization efforts, documents, and again, I mentioned at the very beginning why it is so critical, so important to standardize. And this forum, JSB Forum, provides that exact capability. We truly enjoy and we feel like this is a critical board, standardization board, to be part of, and it is a humbling experience to see at the end of our efforts documents that are being used throughout DoD, Air Forces, Navy, NATO, and a lot of the ABC countries, such as Australia, for example. Slide number 8, please. This basically shows what we do at the JSB, and I'll go through these real quickly. Group 1 is the Boom-Receptacle. Folks that are on this, that are working on documents, and you can see on the right-hand side organizations such as, I'll take one, Dillon Jones Air Force Logistics Center. Group number 2, for example, works on Probe-Drogue components. I'll take one example out of there. Tom Cavallero from NavAir works on that. There are other smaller companies, not big airframers, but smaller companies, refueling companies that provide products like Cobham or Eaton. And you can see on the bottom right-hand side of the slide that they're also involved in this. Slide number 9, please. Group 3, they work on the aircraft formation lights. Again, you're up in the air, 2 planes close together. You're looking at all sorts of any help you can get, whether it's marking, lightings, formation aids, pilot directors' lights, that sort of stuff, any kind of reference points when there's almost zero visibility conditions. So folks, again, from NavAir, Royal Air Force UK, Boeing, commercial tanker like Omega, they're involved, Northrop Grumman. In Group 4, for example, the maintenance ground support equipment, we have Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Air Force that are involved in that. Slide number 10, please. So this is group number 5, clearance process and procedures. So, for example, we are having nations, NATO nations, that are getting their own tankers, developing and receiving tankers. So now they are coming, and we're putting a process in place where they say, okay, we want the Navy receivers cleared behind our new tanker we just got, for example, let's say France. And we want Air Force receivers to clear. So what's the process? And Group 5 is developing and has developed a lot of those processes. And you can see U.S. Transcom, JAPCC, Joint Air Power Competence Center from NATO, CalCAR Germany is involved with that. Other agencies are involved with that. Air Force's Air Refueling Certification Agency doing some very critical work. Slide number 11, please. This is systems requirements and verification methods, basically testing, if you will. And I will go over the documents real quickly in the next couple of slides, but I refer you to the right-hand side of the slide that we have Lockheed, Boeing's, Airbus, NavAir, Air Force, all involved in creating these documents and all that. So it certainly is coalition the willing. We heard that today numerous times. And we certainly are not, like the rest of our JSBs, we're not paid for this, but we realize this is important, it's critical to do and provide these products, these documentations. Slide number 12, please. Group 7 is working on automated aerial refueling. Why is that important? Well, we are getting into unmanned aerial refueling, for example. Air Force is involved. U.S. Navy, actually, we just contracted with Boeing a couple of years ago to create the MQ-25, which is going to be aircraft carrier-based unmanned tanker. So when you don't have a person in the loop, everything is automated. Well, we need procedures for that, and this group is working on procedures for that. When you have an unmanned tanker with manned receivers coming up behind you, and then eventually down the road, we expect unmanned tanker and unmanned receiver in the future. So this group will be critical to that. Next few slides I'll go through real quickly. Slide number 13, please. So who initiates the documents? How do we generate the document? So if there's a need, a requirement, a military or the industry side of the house, they will come up with suggestions, ideas. They will pass it through on to us, JSB chairs, deputy chairs, executive directors of ARSAG, and we will look at the current workload priorities and all, look at the criticality and the urgencies of the said name. Say, for example, this unmanned documentation that we need. Well, we know there's going to be first flight at the end of this month. So we've been working on something for the last year and a half. We need to have something in hand before the aircraft goes out and starts doing refueling missions and all that. So here's the process. Slide 14, please. And this is the flow through of who needs to see the ideas, the suggested documentations, how it works, and eventually who signs off that, yes, we're going to work on this document. It's worthy. It should take priority. Slide 15, please. And same thing. This is the flow process. And again, I said I'm going to be going through this real quick. Slide 16, please. Again, this is a chart showing all the documents that we worked on. You can see the document number, document name, and over on the right-hand side, you can see % completed and projected date of completion and who's working on them. Slide 17, please. Same kind of thing. What the documents are that we are working on, and you can see some of them on the right. They're very close to completion, some that are completed. So what do we do with these documents? We, after they're signed off, they go into DTIC, available to everyone that needs them, that needs to get a hold of them. Slide 18, please. And just some pictures, real quickly. I'm showing here the Choudhury system that NATO, Marine Corps, and a lot of the NATO countries that use the Choudhury system. The bottom left is E2 airplane as a receiver. This is the Airborne Control, Navy's radar control airplane, and that's going to be a program of record. They're going some testing right now at Patuxent River, Maryland, and this airplane, which has never been able to refuel before, will be able to refuel carrier base behind. And this picture showing behind the F-18. On the bottom right-hand side is the F-35, and trying to plug into a drogue basket for Probe-Drogue refueling. Slide 19, please. Real quickly, this is the Italian KC-767, as I mentioned before. When a NATO nation gets a tanker, what's the process? How do we do this? So Italian tanker came to the U.S. to Navy base Patuxent River, and this is just one of the airplanes that we cleared behind the Italian KC-767 tanker. Slide 20. Same kind of a thing. Australia said, okay, we have something called the KC-30 tanker, which is really an Airbus multi-role tanker transport. They've cleared their F-18s, Australian F-18s. So we've done a lot of read across, if you will. And sharing data helps us a lot. We don't necessarily do a lot of flight testing. So Australia is very good for that. They shared a lot of data with us, and we were able to do a lot of read across and clear our Navy Navy receivers behind their tanker, and that was a very good success story. Slide 22, and this is the MQ-25, a picture of an MQ-25 unmanned, and first flight with a refueling store is supposed to be towards the end of this month, October. And if I'm invited again to speak at one of these forums, I will certainly talk more about the MQ-25, the unmanned tanker. Slide 23 is my last slide, is opportunities. And again, my previous speakers talked about Coalition of the Willing, why it's important to standardize, and what does a lack of standardization do. Again, bottom line is if we don't standardize, it can cost lives, is my bottom line, as I shared those two stories in the very beginning. And the very last slide is basically my contact info, Farhad Choudhury. And that's the end of my presentation. I'm sorry if I went through them real quickly. I want to turn it over to Lloyd, and I don't know if we have time for Q&A for all the panelists. Lloyd?
Farhad, that was excellent. Thank you very much. You had perfect timing. Enjoyed it very much. I am going to pass it back to Michael, though, and let him determine if we're going to do any Q&A real quick. Michael, it's all yours if you're on.
Yes, thank you, Colonel Brown, Mr. G, Ms. Picnic, Mr. DiGiacomo, and Mr. Choudhury. Do we have one quick question available for the panelists?
Yes, I'll start with Mr. G. Who has the ULCONS contract now?
Who has the ULCONS contract?
Yes.
The ULCONS contract is an Israeli company, and if you hadn't asked me, I would be able to tell you right off the top of my head.
Sorry.
It's Fibertech out of
but
Kentucky.
Fibertech, that's it. Thank you.
You're
Fibertech.
welcome.
Do we have time for one more, Michael?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, because I had another one for you, Mr. G. Have non-DoD agencies been included as ad hoc members in the Standardization Board for Expeditionary Shelters? Examples could include the U.S. Coast Guard or FEMA, which both play roles in disasters and often rely on these types of equipment.
No, actually, that's a good idea. I'll take that down as a suggestion to bring to the rest of the JSB board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just have one more, Michael, for Ms. Picnic, if you want to go for it.
Go for it. Thank you.
Okay. Do you develop MIL standards in the area of fusing and initiation systems by yourself in parallel with NATO STANAGs, or do you use knowledge from AC326 group and their products, such as STANAGs, as input to national standards?
So thank you. So this is Sandy. So generally in terms of initiation system standards, it depends on whether the DoD US is leading the effort on that standard or whether NATO is leading the effort on that standard. And then we'll take it to the corresponding group for further development.